years to address this issue. We are like 30 days away from an election, and now we're going to start talking about it. This is appalling. It should have been taken care of long ago before we even allowed 12 million illegals to come into our nation. This is an issue of national security. And what I have said this whole campaign is there is a solution, but it's going to take fresh faces in Washington, folks that are sent to Washington with a mandate to roll up your sleeves, park the partisan politics at the door, and get to work. That's what's not been happening. We need to secure the border. That's stop the hemorrhaging. Second line of defense is our businesses. They're not coming here because we're charming. They're coming here because they need jobs. And so if we can provide a database where someone can come in applying for a job, you can enter their name and their social security number and check instantly to see if the birth date matches, we will know whether they're here legally or not. That is how we need to approach the issue.
Well, we've reached that time now in our program where we need to hear from our studio audience and your questions from home using the telephone number again at the bottom of your screen, 1-800-866-5898. We have Georgia Sandlin of the League of Women Voters who is with us. I understand that we've had audience members bringing you cards with their questions throughout this debate. What's the first question?
The first question. Health care is an ever-growing part of government, business, and personal expenditures. How would you deal with this in the light of huge deficits?
Thank you. 90 seconds. It first goes to you, Ms. Jenkins.
Well, we do have a serious problem with health care. And I think countries that have taken the approach of a government-run health care have taken the wrong approach, and that is what many of our Democrat leaders are proposing today. I think we have to look no further than countries like England and Canada to see that that does not work. Sorry. My approach would be one, I guess, first offer some tax advantages or incentives for people to be able to go buy their own health insurance. That provides some portability. And for folks who are looking at losing a job, it's not just the job that they're fearful of losing, it's their health care. So if you can own your own health care, then you can take it from state to state, job to job. In addition to that, we need some transparency in health care. If we can go online and see what is the most cost-effective hotel to stay in Topeka tonight, then why can't we go online and see what is the most cost-effective health care? And then I'm a supporter of the health savings accounts. I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with personal responsibility, and that's what those health savings accounts promote.
I happen to be from the United Kingdom, as you know, Ms. Jenkins, and I'm not saying anything good about a National Health Service plan, but I happen to be 85 years old. Ms. Boyda, 90 seconds on the health insurance question.
Wow, that is amazing. You know, when I just was talking about immigration and energy and healthcare, I think there's a real clear answer again for energy and immigration. Healthcare is probably the hardest problem that this country is facing. And it is the one that is going to require the most bipartisanship. The good news is that the National Federation of Independent Businesses, AARP, and many others are coming together, and the conversation is finally changing. They're finally saying it's so bad, we have to do something so bad that we're ready to not say no. And that's making a huge difference in the conversation in Washington, D.C. So what are we going to do in the short term? There are so many things that we can do in the short term. I have taken on the issue of community pharmacy and become just their champion. And we've actually gotten some real things done in community pharmacy that are going to keep them open. We already lost 7 counties to have no pharmacy. We stopped that hemorrhaging. It was a massive amount of work to even get that done, but we were able to do that. But here's what we can do in the short term too. There were 3 things that were completely off the list that George Bush said that we couldn't touch. One was oil subsidies. One was the new subsidies that were started to the health insurance industry. In 2003, we started what CBO says are $65 billion to the health insurance industry, and to pharmaceutical industries completely still has free rein to set any price that they want. That'll be literally tens and hundreds of billions of dollars that we can save. We can start there. I agree with transparency, with outcomes, electronic
That's
medical
all you have
records.
time
There's
for.
much we can
Unfortunately,
do.
I know you've got more to say, but thank you, Ms. Boyda. We're also getting your questions, of course, from home using the telephone number at the bottom of your screen. I've been handed cards with your questions. The first question is from Steve in Topeka. How do you feel about same-sex marriage? And it starts with you, Nancy Boyda, for 90 seconds.
Well, I do believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. I also believe that we should, I have voted to say that we need to have people have the rights when they go into the workplace, that they know they're not going to be fired for being discriminated against. I feel very strongly about that. I think it's a very American value. I think that's something that everybody agrees with. I don't care what your orientation is. You should not be discriminated. And I felt the same way with hate crimes. And so I have voted for both of those. I do not support a constitutional marriage or amendment to ban gay marriage. I think that's a state issue. I've kind of said tongue-in-cheek that I'm hoping to get through Congress without voting for any constitutional amendment. I think it's pretty good the way it is, and I don't think we should be tampering with it.
How do you feel about Steve's question about same-sex marriage, Ms. Jenkins?
I oppose gay marriage and believe that it's a states' rights issue, and Kansas spoke a few years ago.
Thank you. We're going to go back to our audience questions now. Georgia Sandlin with another question.
What effect do you believe the top of the ticket will have on your local race?
Ms. Jenkins, 90 seconds.
Well, as I said earlier, I've been probably one of the most vocal critics of what's been going on in Washington when my own party was in control and now as the Democrat Party is in control. But I'm excited about John McCain and Sarah Palin at the top of the Republican ticket. I think they are mavericks, both of them. They have bucked not only the Republican Party, but the system for years. They are leaders. And that's what the nation is so hungry for these days, is folks with leadership ability who are going to stand up and do the right thing. And I think it's going to be a great year for McCain-Palin. And here in Kansas, the other race that will be, I think, great for Kansans is the Pat Roberts senatorial seat, where I think we can expect Pat to do great and wonderful things too.
So based on your answer, you'll be voting for John McCain then,
I
Ms.
think
Jenkins.
that's safe to assume.
Nancy Boyda, 90 seconds.
Let me just say that this is such a cool election. No matter what happens, McCain, Palin, or Barack Obama and Biden, it's going to be historic. I mean, the whole world is watching what's going on, and I think the whole debate and the way we're conducting ourselves is good right now, and the world is certainly watching. Here's what I think that's going to be so important in the presidential election, and I will be voting for Barack Obama and Joe Biden. But I would just say, for those of you who are still undecided or in this whole process, I think there are a couple of big decisions that need to be made. And again, are we going to continue to run the country from this whole trickle down? We're going to flood all this money into the top and hope that some of it trickles down? Are we going to put referees back on the field? They came off. Who's going to put the referees back on the field? And not only that, but to discipline the referees to make sure that they're actually doing their job. The world is an increasingly more dangerous place. And as I've said earlier, we have increasingly fewer capacities to deal with the violence that's going on in the world. Who do you think is going to be the one to go out and build the relationships and to bring down some of the tensions in the world? I'll let you make your own decisions. That's what this whole election is about. This is our democracy, and I'm excited about the election.
Now, as you can imagine, many of the questions coming in from our phone viewers are about the economy. And this one comes to you first, Ms. Boyda. This is from Bill in Leavenworth. How do you propose to help middle-class people with IRAs in 90 seconds or less?
Bill in Leavenworth, how do I propose to help with IRAs?
Yeah, middle-class people with IRAs.
I think we have a good IRA system right now. The limits need to be taken up. I'm not prepared, really. That's a good question. Bill, you're the first one who's asked me that in 4 years, and I appreciate that. I haven't really studied how much we should take it up. It's a good concept. It's easy to say, I'm going to come in here and raise the limits on an IRA. But the fact is, let's go back to that AMT for a minute, because you said I voted against it. Lynn, you failed to say the other part of that story. I voted for the AMT fix. We both agree 100% that we need to fix the AMT. What we disagree, there were two votes, one that was paid for and one that wasn't. And the pay for was corporate taxes on these offshore corporations that aren't paying their taxes. It went straight down party lines again. So let me get back to the IRA question. Do I think we should? Of course we do, but we're going to have to find a way to pay for it. We cannot just continue. Somewhere or another, we have to deal with this deficit, and it's on both sides of the equation. So of course I would be happy to look at it, but we need to be responsible. We can't ask our kids to keep paying for all of this. So there's hard decisions to be made. This job is not for the faint of heart. It's very easy to stand up and say, I'm going to go to Congress and do an immigration bill, and I'm sure everybody's going to agree with me.
And that's the time you have. Thank you very much. Lynn Jenkins, do you have any hope for Bill in Leavenworth about what you might do for middle-class people with IRAs?
Well, I do. I mean, this is what I spent my entire professional career doing in public accounting, is helping people with their finances, with their tax planning. I've set a lot of IRAs up for folks over the years. And it goes back to one of the strong Republican tenets that I hold dear, and that's personal responsibility. And preparing for your retirement takes a lot of hard work. Social Security is no longer a one-legged stool that we can all rely on. In fact, the young people here tonight, good luck, you know, because you have to wonder whether it will be around when you are ready to retire. And so we have to provide folks with alternatives and additional resources to be able to save for their retirement. Personal savings, retirement plans, either employer-sponsored or, you know, IRAs, and Social Security. It's going to take that three-legged stool in order for us to take care of ourselves in retirement. And not only do we need to make sure that the IRAs are feasible and given good tax incentives, but we need to look at Social Security on the flip side, because, you know, every budget that Nancy has voted for has not been balanced, and that means, in effect, it raids the Social Security Trust Fund. And that's a crying shame. We need to address the Social Security system in this equation as well, and we need to do it without balancing that on the backs of folks that are currently retired.
Okay, I want to go into more questions, but you are mentioning Social Security. Your response to that in 60 seconds, please,
Let me just
Ms.
say,
Boyda.
sorry, Bill, neither one of us gave you a straight answer on that one. So, you know, it's a good question. We'll try to get back to you. If you can contact my office, I'd be happy to
Will
do
you be
some more
giving
research.
him your home number tonight?
No.
Ms. Boyda? Okay, all right.
No. But you can, or at 785-234-8111 would be the office there you can do so. And the question on Social Security, I think Social Security is clearly, it's on paper, it's pretty stable. We need to make some changes around the edges, but Social Security itself is pretty stable. The whole issue is the deficit. And so, Lynn, you keep on kind of saying, I'm going to give this tax break and that tax break, I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to walk in, and all of a sudden I'm going to take everybody's taxes away because I'm a Republican, then tell us you're not partisan, and you're not giving us anything. How do you start to get that done? How do you pay for it? How do you balance a budget? And so the Social Security issue isn't so much about Social Security, it comes right back to that deficit. And yes, we're dealing with the war, we're dealing with massive spending that we're trying to do with, and we are aggressively trying to balance that budget as fast as we can. And I'm sorry we didn't go to from reckless spending to a balanced budget in 18 months.
For full fairness and equity, Ms. Jenkins, you now get 60 seconds with the final word on this.
Well, I think the first step is an easy one when it comes to fixing Social Security, and that's stop raiding the fund. And that means you need to start balancing the budget. Those of us that have worked in state government, we're required to balance our budget. There's a refreshing idea. And it's something that can be done in Washington if we would stop spending money on vanity projects like these reckless and irresponsible earmark projects. John McCain has promised to veto any bill that comes across his office or his desk that has a vanity project in it and make the author famous. You know, when we send $1 of our hard-earned tax money to Washington, D.C., by the time it cranks through the process, only 50% of it's less. The congressmen and women divvy up what's left, and we get pennies on that dollar back. I want to keep the dollar in Kansas and decide how we're going to spend it.
We're going to go back now to our audience questions, and I see Georgia Sandling still has a thick wad of cards in front of her. What's the next question?
With the rising cost of gas, food, and everything else, how do you feel about the current minimum wage?
And that goes to you, first of all, Ms. Jenkins, for 90 seconds.